Hey everyone, welcome back. So back in December, I did some very long videos yapping about my first semester of university. And now since summer is almost over, I figured it's time I yap about the second one. Yes, it's very late, but things haven't exactly gone according to plan since I moved back home. At the beginning, it was spiral after spiral distracting me, and then all of us being in the hospital, and now it's my broken laptop. So I can't really film anything but long, yappy videos. But yeah, hopefully, unlike the other one, I can upload it into like only one part instead of splitting it into 6. But I don't know. This new phone's been pretty good for long videos so far, so fingers crossed. Also, yes, wearing this new necklace I made. It's not the best, but it's kind of cute, so we'll deal with it. For the record, I still have no idea if I'm going back or not, and that's really bad because it's like mid-August. Yeah, that's a whole other mess I need to sort out. But for now, why not yap about my second semester? And I'm not going to really recap the first too much, so if you want to go watch those other videos, please do. But yeah, if you watch all that, and you could think like, God, there's no way it could get worse than that. And honestly, in some ways it wasn't, in some ways it was. It's complicated. So at the beginning of January, the day before the first day of classes, I moved back into my residence. And I brought like all my new stuff from Christmas and new clothes and cool stuff. And I was like, okay, we're gonna make this better than last time. And although it was hard, I managed to choose 3 classes. So first, I got into the Intro to Psychology that I wanted to take first semester but couldn't get in, so I did that. And then I chose this communications class because from all the reviews on like Rate My Professor, it said that it was a pretty easy class, and we're like, okay, we'll go with that. And then the most epic, my favorite part of this semester, was my Taylor Swift anthropology class. So those were the 3 I was going with. So after I got like unpacked and moved back in, I was like, I want to go on a walk so I can find these new classes like I did in the first semester. So I can know where everything is, because while I was getting more familiar with where things were in the building, I still didn't know exact room numbers or locations. But I had recently been learning kind of how to access things better, and this also helped me with that. So one of my favorite things that I got for Christmas was my Bluetooth earbuds, because I have an iPhone SE, so there's no headphone jack. So for, the last year or 2 years I've had my phone, I've mostly had to listen to music on my laptop, unless I didn't need headphones. But like when I was trying to listen to music with headphones, I couldn't. For Christmas in 2024, I got like a little thing to attach onto earbuds, like a phone charger to plug into the phone so you can listen to it, and that worked for a few months, but like a cheap phone charger, it self-destructed after a few months, so I had nothing I could do. But I finally got these like Bluetooth earbuds for Christmas, and they were awesome. So that day, I spent hours walking around finding my classes, and I did. I finally discovered where certain things were in the building and kind of, where to go. And then I just spent hours like walking and walking, listening to music, and it was so peaceful. And that became a regular routine up until I moved out. Just walking around, listening to music. I already loved walking around, but I did it more now because I could listen to music, and it was really nice, and I really enjoyed it. I also finally figured out how to access everything from the inside. Like, there are ways that you can go outside, which I had mainly been doing in first semester apart from like one class, but I finally learned how to do everything from the inside. But a part of the reason I was doing everything from the outside last semester when I could was because of Stalker Boy, we'll call him. If you guys don't know who Stalker Boy is, you can watch my first part. I talk about him quite a few times, but part 4 is where I admit that throughout the first semester he stalked me and harassed me, and the final straw came when I went to his room like a dumbass, and he he did sexually assault me. Not rape, but sexual assault, and it just wasn't good. So I did my best to avoid him, because all this kid would do was sit on a bench every day and wait for me to come by. So I, despite being on the 19th floor of residence, I started taking the stairs to go outside to avoid him. But eventually, by second semester, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't take those stairs anymore. He has kind of backed off since the assault. He's not stalking me as often. And also, I can't do that anymore because it's going to be freezing cold in the winter. I cannot be taking all those stairs and going outside in the cold. I need to access everything from the inside. So I stopped taking the stairs. And I finally figured out how to access everything from the inside. And although it was risky and I ran into him a few times, it wasn't too bad. So yeah, that was like my favorite thing to do at night or whenever I could, just walk around and be free. It was super peaceful. I'm sure I looked like a crazy person, like on the cameras, pacing these hallways every night, but I really enjoyed it, and it was a peaceful thing for me to do. And I even did it back in June. If you guys watched my vlog at the Ronald McDonald House, I walked my own university, and I was like, I'm gonna go walk around because it's peaceful and it calms me, and that's what I did. So the plan for my schedule was to do 3 classes, as I said, and my original schedule was psychology and communications on Monday and Wednesday, and then Taylor Swift class on Thursday. But things ended up getting switched. You see, the first morning that we had classes, I got up and I got all ready and dolled up for the first day, and I was like, okay, it cannot possibly be as bad as last semester. So I get ready and I head down to my psychology class. So I sit down in this kind of weirdly shaped room. It's like a horseshoe kind of shape, and there's like these long tables around, so you can like see people sitting across from you and all that, and then the professor kind of stands in the middle. But I sat down and looked across the room before realizing Stalker Boy was looking me right in my eyes. Yeah. So when I went to the sexual violence center last fall, we never went through with like fully reporting him to the police or getting a restraining order. I know I should have, but I was just too scared. But one thing that we did want to guarantee is that I wouldn't have any classes with him. And he originally told me he was doing like psychology things like me. So I was really worried he'd be in that class. But we asked the lady at the sexual violence center, and she said, no, he's not in your psychology next semester. You don't have to worry. But it seems I did have to worry because, again, he was in that class and I freaked out. So clearly he had switched some things around. I don't think he knew I was going to be in that class because there's multiple intro to psychology classes. That was just bad luck. So he wasn't when we asked back in October, but since then he had changed classes around and now he was. And I freaked out because I had been avoiding him as much as possible for the last few months, and now he was back. So the professor seemed okay enough, but I couldn't really focus because I was focusing on him. Like, yeah, she was nice, but I'm like, I'm not listening to you, girl. I'm looking at that man over there. Anyway, it was the shortest class in all of history. Our classes are supposed to be like an hour and 15 minutes. We were out of there in 5 minutes because literally all we did was go over the syllabus and leave. I start making a mad dash for the door so I could text my mom and be like, oh my god, he's in this class, what do I do? I need to switch and drop out. I was panicked. But of course, he also ran for me. So he starts talking to me, and as usual, I go all stupid, and I'm like, hey, and I start running away. And like, he starts talking about how we're in this class together so we can work together and do things together, and it'll be great. No, he still clearly doesn't understand. And my next class, okay, so this was like 10 o'clock, this psychology class started, so it was like 10:05, 10:06, and we got out. My next class was not until 11:30, but I had to get away from this man as soon as possible. So he's trying to follow me as he did last semester, and I told him like, no, I gotta go. And he's asking, oh, so you have a class? And I didn't at that time, but I lied and said yes. Also, this shows he's not exactly the brightest because, again, we were out of that class in 5 minutes. Normal classes would be going until 11:15. So no, I wouldn't have another class right now. I'd still be in that one. But clearly he wasn't thinking, so he didn't question me when I said, yep, I totally have another class right now. I do two at the same time. Clearly he didn't know, but yeah, I was able to get away, and I ran to the library and just had to think about my life, and it wasn't very good. So I'm like texting people and posting and freaking out, and I'm like, oh man, don't you guys just love when the guy who stalked and assaulted you was promised he wouldn't be in your class, but he is? What a great start. But yeah, I had to think of how to get out of that. So I had to think how I was going to get out of that situation as soon as possible, and I actually had time to think about it. Because again, that class normally ends at 11:15, and then I have my next class at 11:30, so I'd have like 15 minutes. But since this class ended at like 10:05, I had a lot of time to just wait around. So after forever, I finally had to go to my other class, which was intercultural communication. And this class, it wasn't bad. The older guy, he was okay. He was, pretty nice, pretty funny, and his class was like pretty easy. I got an A+ in the end. I got like a 91, although I should have gotten a 96, but I'll explain that later. But yeah, this class was basically about learning how to communicate with people from like different cultures and stuff, and why that's important. And yeah, this guy, he mostly taught us with YouTube and articles. He would show us like a bunch of videos and articles in class, and then in our own time we had to kind of like take notes on them. Like, he didn't really give us notes. Like, we had to make our own notes from the videos and articles and just trying to figure out what was important, and then that was usually what was on the test. So yeah, we had to do like 3 like written discussion posts throughout the term, I guess. Yeah, like one every month, and then we had 1 big paper, and then we had 2 tests. And thankfully he was a pretty easy marker. And that was the only class where we did like an attendance check. So he knew a few of our names, like if you talked to him a lot, but for the most part he didn't really know a ton of people. But every class he would pass around the attendance sheet, and we would sign our names next to it to prove we were here, because he put attendance into our final grade. So that was great. And if you know anything about me, who has hardly ever missed school throughout her life, when you are out for a week with the flu, however, that makes things complicated, but we'll get to that. So yeah, that class was interesting, which I'll get more into after. But after, I just went to go hang out in the library and think until this guy recognized me, since I've had him on Instagram for the last few months, and he invited me to go hang out with his friend group. So for the next several hours, I hung out with this friend group in the library, and they were pretty nice. So while I never had a set friend group at university, just having a few people I could occasionally talk to was good, even if I was still lonely most of the time. Anyway, eventually it got pretty late and everyone kind of went home or back to their dorms. So I went back to mine and called my mom. She told me that the lady from the Sexual Violence Center sent us an email saying that Stalker Boy was in my class. You don't say! But no, she gave me a few different times where that class is being offered elsewhere, and I could switch into that. Of course, it's not fair that I have to switch because I'm not the problem. I experienced a similar thing with the cult in high school, but it is what it is. So I decided to switch into the Tuesday and Thursday class. So from now on, I would only have 1 class on Mondays and Wednesdays, communications, and then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I would then have psychology, and 15 minutes after that, I would have Taylor Swift class. So the second day comes around, I'm like, let's make this better. So that wasn't until the afternoon, so I actually had quite a bit of time to just kind of hang out and do whatever. I went to my true first psychology class with this other professor in the same room that I had my psychology class last semester, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, we met her and she seemed pretty nice. We did class introductions, and yeah, we just kind of went around and introduced ourselves. She never really knew our names, but for the first day it was kind of nice. So she explained like how things would work and all that, and I was thinking, okay, hopefully this isn't too hard. But I already did the other class first, so a lot of people kind of said it wasn't too different from psychology in high school, and I kind of have to agree. For that class, that was like the only class I needed to buy a book. It was an online interactive book, so like you would do the questions throughout the book and get marked for that, and you could do it over and over until you get it right. So that was an easy way to get a 100 on the book section at least. But anyway, 15 minutes after that class, I went to my first Taylor Swift class, which was my favorite. And it was actually in the same room that I had that other psychology class in yesterday. Horseshoe weird room, but it was really nice. So the professor, his name was Rylan Higgins, and he was wonderful. He's known for being very kind, doing a lot of different cool anthropology classes, and this time he did one on Taylor Swift. And I love Taylor Swift, so I loved that class. And every week I went on the Taylor Swift vault on Facebook and wrote an in-depth, in detail summary of my week in the class, so I won't get into too specifics. But yeah, the first day he kind of talked about how we're just going to talk about Taylor Swift and fans and society and all that. But this class wasn't just for students. It was open to people in the community for free. We had to pay for it as students, but people in the community could show up. So the first day, I'm sitting next to this old guy, and I'm like, honestly, I don't think I ever saw him again. I spent the whole rest of the year being like, where's old man Rivers at? I hope he's okay. Yeah, we kind of got to know some of them. We'd kind of know them just by appearance. We'd be like, okay, that's dude with the funky shirts. That's his wife, I'm pretty sure. That's so-and-so. Mostly students and mostly girls, but there were a few guy students. And then there were maybe 10, 15 community members. And yeah, they were people of all ages and genders. But yeah, I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna really like this class. And I was nervous since it was a level 2 class that usually, second years take, but I was like, I don't think this will be too bad. And it actually turned out to be my easiest class, so that was kind of funny. So I kind of thought from the beginning, this class is gonna be my English class last semester, what'll be my favorite, and it was. But after that first day where we just kind of, yapped about everything, and he's asking, who's a Swiftie, who's a hater, who's agnostic towards Taylor Swift, and most people said they were Swifties. One girl said she was a hater, and then everyone else was kind of neutral or agnostic towards her. But yeah, it was super fun, and he was super funny and nice and just made us feel welcome. Yeah, and his name is Dr. Higgins, but he was one of those professors that was like, don't call me that, just call me Rylan. So we did. Although the second day was a Thursday and I usually went home on Thursdays, since we just got back from break and I didn't get back until Tuesday, since the first day was Wednesday, I was staying an extra night. So I was like, okay, guess I'll just kind of walk around. So I started, and I wrote a community post about this months ago, but I was just kind of walking around downstairs when someone called my name, and it was my English professor from last semester. If you guys watched the other part, the one who became my friend, the one who comforted me, the one that made me happy, the one that got me obsessed with the doll's house, all that. And yeah, although I've seen my English grade, I saw I got an A. Almost an A+, but I got an A. I didn't know what I got on my final exam, but he just kind of ran up to me and was like, Allison, hi, Happy New Year, welcome back. I love that man. So then we started talking about his final exam, and I asked if I did good, and he's like, yeah, you got the best grade in the class, because again, the play was all on A Doll's House, and since that was my favorite thing ever, I was really good at it. And at this point, I had all the episodes of A Doll's House filmed, edited. I was just uploading them once a week, so I could focus on school. But yeah, we were in the process. I think at this point, episode 5 had just been uploaded the day before or 2 days before. But yeah, we talked about it, and he's like, you really, really like the Ibsen play. And I said, yeah. And he talks about how I added so much detail in my final exam, and he was so impressed, and it was just, it made me happy. And since usually I'm not good at writing, and I was thinking the whole time, I've got everything right, I'm sure. I'm just not sure if I wrote it well enough. But I asked about the essay part, and he said, oh yeah, that was really good. So despite my terrible OCD writing, I did really good. And he's like, yeah, I wrote like some comments on it. And yeah, it made me really happy. Then he asked about how my classes are so far, and I told him like, well, Stalker Boy ended up in one of my classes, so I had to switch that. And he's saying like, oh crap, that sucks. Because yeah, I told him before about the whole assault and stalking situation, and he was not very happy about that because he felt really bad for me. So then we just started like walking together towards the library, and I told him about how I'm making an LPS series of A Doll's House. And since I wrote a note about that in the final exam, I was like, hey, by the way, he was like, oh yeah, you wrote something about that. And he said, oh, that's cool. So you can make like your own version of A Doll's House. I mean, following the exact script, but you know, LPS version. And I said, yeah. And he's saying, oh, so like, do you have followers? And I said, yes. And he said, that's cool. I ended up showing him a clip, not with sound, because again, there were other people around and he didn't need to hear my cringy voice, but I showed him like a clip from episode 5 of Nora and Dr. Rank talking to each other, and he was like, wow. And I told him I do like voice acting and stuff, and he thought that was great. He's saying, oh, so like you use these little critters. It's so cute how he said that he calls them little critters. But he said, oh, you use these like little critters to make your stories. And I told him yes. He's asking me, oh, so you have like one named Torvald and Dr. Ray. And I told him, yep, exactly how it is. So we talked about that for a bit, and I told him, you know, since I read it in my characters' voices and said these lines when I was recognizing quotations on the exams, it was easy because I'm like, oh, like I said that, I acted that, I did the context, I did more than just read it like everyone else, I was acting it out. And he said, you know, that's really good. He then told me how he's not teaching anything this semester, which I already knew, but I did kind of need him to confirm. Basically, since I loved him so much and I knew he taught other classes, I originally wanted to look and see if he had any classes second semester that I could do. But when I went on like the thing to register, I didn't see him with any classes second semester, and that confused me because he's full-time. If you guys remember the strike that I talked about that happened first semester where part-time classes were paused for 3 weeks, 2 out of 3 of my classes were canceled except for English because he was my only full-time professor. So that was really confusing to me how he's full-time but not teaching anything second semester. And he kind of explained it to me, and I was like, yeah, I looked on there and I didn't see you teaching anything. I don't really know how to explain it, but basically he's not teaching anything for this semester, so like he can be at, you know, at home or do his own thing and, you know, prepare for next year, all that, but he wasn't teaching anything that semester. So, you know, that kind of sucked because, you know, I wanted his class, but I knew at this point because I checked for months that he didn't teach anything, but you know, him confirming it was good. So we just kind of talked, and he then told me that he would be emailing us in like a week or so, and we can go and pick up our final exams. And I was excited about that because I wanted to see exactly what I got. I wanted to see those comments. Usually I don't want to read what the comments say because I assume there's something bad, so I don't. But you know, since he confirmed I did good and I got like the second best grade in the midterm and the first best for the final, I wanted to see that. And also I wanted to go to his office so, you know, I could talk to him a bit more about stuff. So I was like, okay, that's great. So he said, okay, I'll probably email everyone on like Wednesday to come pick them up. And I said, okay. And then we said goodbye and I walked away and I never saw him again. He sadly never emailed us and never came back. I'm assuming he just forgot because, again, if he's not teaching anything that semester, he has no reason to really be at school. That day, I think he was just getting something from the library. That's where he was going when we were walking together. But after that, since he never came back because he wasn't teaching anything, I think he forgot. So that sucks. And I waited like that whole semester. I was like, maybe I'll see him around, you know, maybe we'll still do it, but he never came back, so I hope he's alive and okay. He is teaching classes this year, so I assume he's alive. But yeah, sadly, he never came back, which is disappointing because I wanted that back and I wanted to like read my essay to you guys as another A Doll's House content, but he didn't come back, sadly. So yeah, I don't believe he was trying to intentionally lie to me or forget about me because, you know, he just forgot because he wasn't teaching anything. But yeah, he sadly never came back. I really wanted to talk to him again, but he sadly never came back, so that didn't happen. Like the day before I moved out, there's this guy that was in my English class, and he was the one who got first best on the midterm that the professor told me. He was like, yeah, the only one who got higher than you was him. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. He's like the most engaged. And once in a while we talked, like we would text once in a while about grades, and then every once in a while we'd see each other and be like, hi. We weren't like really super close friends or anything, and we didn't hang out, but you know, once in a while I'd see him around. And like the day before I moved out, he saw me in the library and he talked to me, and we talked about final exams. I didn't have any at that point. I was just staying there until I moved out, but he apparently had his last one. He said, yeah, glad that's over. How was the final in English? And I told him, well, he told me I got like the best grade in the class. He was going to send us emails to go pick them up, but he never came back since he's not teaching anything. So yeah, we talked about that for a bit until he left. But yeah, that was kind of one of the people I would talk to once in a while or see around. He didn't live there, he commuted there, so just once in a while and I would see him. And I didn't have any classes with him after English and my other psychology first semester ended. But yeah, he was like the only one I could talk to, but that professor was like nobody else I could talk to about it. But yeah, it was just like one conversation, but it was nice. So again, I really liked going on walks. At first I was like, this is only something I'll probably be able to do for the first little while when I don't have a bunch of work to do. But throughout the whole semester, I continued doing it, going on walks, mainly at night, and they were very peaceful. I did occasionally do it in the afternoon, but, you know, at night it was better because there was no one around. It was super peaceful, although a little creepy at times, but peaceful. But I also started going on more walks to town, to the mall with the dollar store, where I would occasionally buy some things. Again, probably shouldn't have been doing that, but you know, I did. And my first trip I told you guys about was such a disaster, but after a while I got really good at it. I started like getting there a lot faster. It wasn't as scary to walk around the city, and you know, it was good for me, even though kind of dangerous and kind of creepy at times. But you know, once in a while I would go to that dollar store and get some toys or candy or LPS stuff if they had any. So it was just kind of something I like to do once in a while, was walk to town. And even when it was cold, I would still do it at times. Not a lot, like usually only a couple times a month, but you know, it was nice. And I didn't get horribly lost like that first time, thank God. So for the first 2 weeks back, they did welcome weeks like they did back in August and September. And it was basically, you know, just 2 weeks of fun activities you can go to for returning and new students, because they were new students who would only start in January. But one of the things they did like the second week was like speed dating, but for friends. So it was like friendship dating, and I decided to go, and it was actually pretty good. The first person I talked to, it was awkward. We barely said anything. But then I talked to other people and we actually got talking, and it was really nice. And you know, I got a couple of people who wanted to, you know, be friends. Kind of. We didn't really hang out or anything, but we'd like add each other on social media, say hi when we saw each other around, and you know, that was kind of a nice thing to do. Girls, guys, everyone was just pretty nice. So I didn't make like close friends from it. I was glad to talk to some people, and I have a few new followers now, so that's pretty cool. But my main favorite welcome week event was when they took us to the movies for free. It was awesome. Like I did this like bingo thing again. I didn't win, and then there were some other things I went to, but my favorite was the movies. They took us to go see Zootopia 2 for free, and it was awesome. Now at first I was worried I wouldn't be able to go because they were taking us on the bus and I don't have a bus pass. And at first the student leaders, they like looked at my ID and they noticed I didn't have the bus pass. And I was worried I wouldn't be able to go, since I also couldn't buy a ticket online because I don't have my bank card working and stuff. But in the end, they ended up taking me and a few others in the car, and that was really awesome. So we went to go see the movie, and it was amazing. I love Zootopia, and it was perfect. It was just... the movie was awesome. I did have to buy popcorn, but other than that, it was good. And I even got 10 cents off, so that was great. But the movie was great. Great to see it for free, and it was just a really nice event that they did, so I'm really glad they did that. Better than the outdoor movie first semester. That was pretty good too, but you know, this was way better. And then the next day I went to this event in the school, the like Rainbow Committee or the Queer Club, whatever they're called. They were doing an event like making pins, and I was thinking, oh, that could be perfect because I really want an asexual pin. Like, I can never find them. You go to the stores and you see just like the generic rainbow, ally, bi, lesbian, all those, like just the generic ones. You never see asexual ones. And if you guys watched my last rant from last semester, or actually it might have been in my Asexual Awareness Week 2025 video, I had a little keychain that I made until it got like lost or stolen. So yeah, I was like, if they have an official one or I can make an official one, that will be great. So I ended up getting 3 new pins. They had a couple that were just already made template designs, like these cute asexual cats. And then I designed 2 other ones. Momo the cat, because you guys know my love for this creature. And then this flag one, which the red circle is kind of annoying, but other than that, it's perfect. So I made those for free, and that was awesome. I wish I had a button maker thing. That would be so fun. But I made those, and then I brought in my 2 pins I made in 2023, the one of my YouTube profile picture and the one of my late cat Gypsy, and I put them all on my backpack. So I had a backpack with 5 pins, and it was pretty cool, so I was glad to do that. So another thing you guys might know, school has been incredibly lonely. Again, a few people I would talk to, but it wasn't usually in class. It was usually just out and around. You know, since my best friend dropped out and then my other friend turned out to be a crazy stalker, sexual assaulter. But there was one class where I actually did find people to talk to frequently, and that was Taylor Swift class. That was the one class that I had people to socialize with, because I mainly made friends with the community members, the people who were coming in for free, the people who noticed my Facebook posts about the course and all that. And then there was one girl I sat next to who was actually a student, and I kind of became friends with her. So our whole group, like every week, we would just talk, and it was really great. Like that was the only class I had people to talk to in, and it was really nice. And then we always did the assignments together, and it was really, really great. Like just having a class where I had some people to talk to, even if a lot of them weren't students, everyone was so nice. And for once I was like, I have some friends to talk to in university. That is good. With the Taylor Swift class, we didn't have like assignments really, like out of class assignments apart from doing the reading, and we didn't have exams. We just did an activity every Thursday, which was like our assignment. And on those days they usually, like Rylan would say, you know, maybe the community members, you don't have to come, it's more for the students to do assignments. But occasionally they did come, including one of my friends who was a community member. So yeah, usually it was our same group doing assignments, but occasionally like I'd have the whole group absent that day, so I'd have to find new people to be in a group with. But everyone in that class was really nice. You would just do the assignment, like one person would write for everyone, and then pretty much everyone got good grades. And I got really good grades, let me tell you. That was awesome. It was just like a fun day on Tuesday, and then an assignment Thursday. Occasionally, we had to write our own assignments, which were like our in-class essays, which always stressed me out, but I actually did way better on them than I thought, even with my terrible OCD writing. So it was really good. But yeah, I had to like squish everything and make it really small, and he was like, wow, that is small, but you know, you still fit it on one page, so you followed the directions. All jokes aside, that class was really good, not only because it was Taylor Swift, which I loved and I got good grades, but because that was the only class where I had people to talk to. So that was really awesome. I was so glad I had that class to make me happy throughout the week. So while my classes were good, I had a problem. Starting from the beginning of the semester, I was experiencing a problem I hadn't experienced before. This is going to sound insane, but since the beginning of this year, been feeling like I can't read. That's insane, because I've always been strong at reading since I was little. I did amazing in English. Like, why was this happening? But out of nowhere, I just felt like I couldn't read. Like, I try and read, but the words would just sound all jumbled in my head. It would sound like it was a different language. And like, I couldn't remember anything. Like, I see the words, I could physically see the words, but they didn't make any sense, and then I would forget them seconds later. So this was a problem. Like, I'd write out my notes and I'd try and study, but I just couldn't read or comprehend anything in my head, and it really stressed me out. It caused several panic attacks, and it was awful. I felt like I couldn't process anything that was going on, especially in psychology, and it really, really affected me because I was like, I can't read, I'm crazy, I'm stupid, and I am done for. And while the sexual violence center lady was supposed to help us get into the like Smithers Center for Disabilities and stuff, they never got back to us, so that was a problem. I didn't know what I was going to do, and in the end, it surprised me even more because they shouldn't have been so good. I could barely study. I tried to read my notes, but it just wasn't working. I felt like I was insane and dying. Like, the thing I could do the most was the quizzes on Gizmo, like the flashcards. That was about it. Reading notes and texts and books in my textbook, it felt impossible. I tried, but I just couldn't figure it out. When we got to our February break, I had an eye appointment. Not because of this, we just had one every 2 years and our last one was 2024, but we brought this up and he told us that it's probably anxiety. Anxiety can cause a processing issue and make it so you feel like you can't read, even if you can physically see fine. And that was really annoying. Even though I've been anxious my whole life, this is only happening now, and it's a problem. And I have glasses I occasionally wear, and sometimes I would put them on and it would help for a bit, but then I'd have to take them off for the opposite effect. Like, I just could not process what I was reading, and it was really, really bad. So I tried my best for months, cried for months, somehow survived for months, but it was an issue. So another thing we started experiencing throughout like January and February, which we didn't first semester, was snow days. Of course, we had days where classes would get canceled because of the professor or the strike, but there were some snow days. Not as many as back in grade school. And also, weather in the city was often way different than the weather at home. So there would be days that, Leah and Kenda would have school, but I wouldn't, or the opposite. And for the most part, they had way more snow days than me. We only had a few, and those days were basically, no classes at all. You can do whatever you want. The dining halls can be closed, which is super annoying. But like the little candy store and stuff is open. So those days, you just chill. There were also plenty of delayed days, but they rarely ever affected my classes. Like, they were usually, before or after in effect for my classes, so I never really had delayed days. I think, maybe we had like one, but for the most part, there were only a few snow days that we had. So, there were days where we'd just be there doing nothing in my dorm, so that was fun. Speaking of canceled classes, I should mention, during like the first 2 weeks, we got news that there could be another strike. And this time for the full-time professors. So I started looking into my classes to find out, okay, if this happens, how many of my classes are going to be affected? Once again, 2. If that happened, I would have only had one class, and that was the psychology. My Taylor Swift and communications class would have been canceled. So yeah, that was really stressful, but it didn't end up happening. We were scared for weeks, but it didn't end up happening, so that was good. Speaking of the dining halls, I think I told you guys in the last video from December, since I got the best room with a kitchen, I was exempt from that $7,000 meal plan, and with my eating issues, that was good. So instead, I just had a flex dollar plan, which was like $200 something each semester, and you can use them wherever. So even though I was mainly still bringing food and meals every week, I started trying to eat at the dining hall a bit more. And I was like, I just need to use up these as much as I can. So I'd buy that, I'd buy drinks from Tim Hortons, I'd buy candy. And like, the very first time I bought candy that semester, the guy, he like looks at my flex points, and I have a ton because I barely used them last semester, and with the new semester I got once added on to it. So he was like, whoa, you are loaded. And he basically told me, like, I have until the end of the semester to use all of them because I don't get it back. And I understood. So, like, every time I'd buy candy from him, he'd be like, you're super rich, huh? Oh, he's a really nice guy. But yeah, I started like buying, meals and things more often, and that was good. And then occasionally I would go down to the food court where I'd get like much cheaper food, and I could get like chicken nuggets and french fries, which I really liked. They were like a value meal. And then they offered drinks, and while I don't drink pop or anything, I started liking Sprite kind of, so that's cool. I would get that and I'd be like, yeah, that's good enough. It's not really my thing with the texture, but I started really liking it, so that's good. So there were some other things I went to try and talk to people. Like one night when I returned on a Sunday, my floor was doing like this game night thing, with all the other girls that also like alcohol-free environments. So I went to join them and they were playing like Anomia. And at first I was watching and I was too nervous, but then I was like, you know what, I'll play. And it actually was really fun, so that was pretty cool. Eventually we get into early February for our first tests that are technically midterms. I mean, they wouldn't call it midterms, but like, we all knew what they were. So we had our first psychology and communications test. And I was not sure how to feel about either of them. Like, they were both scary to me, but then again, since not being able to read, everything's been kind of scary to me. But I survived, wrote some stupid stuff on them, but I just did my best. But after my psychology test, so unlike in high school, when you finish your test, you still have to stick around till the end of class, you just go. And after my psychology test, I still had quite a while until the end of class, and then 15 minutes after that until Taylor Swift class. So I went to go sit on a bench, and I wasn't thinking. Since I'm normally in class at this time, I don't pay too much attention to where Stalker Boy will be. I've learned to kind of plan where he will be when I'm walking around, but since I'm normally in class at certain times, I don't pay attention to where he is then, because I'm like, I'm not going to see him. But I completely forgot. I was just going to go sit on a bench and wait until next class. But I wasn't thinking how I'm normally still in my class at this time, so that's why I don't worry about seeing him. But since I was out of class, he found me for the first time in like a month. And he was like, "Hey, it's been a while." Even worse, I was on that bench that he usually waited for me on. So now it looks like I was waiting for him. Great. Just great. So yeah, that was really awkward. I wasn't thinking. I should have just hid after that class, but again, I wasn't thinking because I forgot that while I'm in this class, he could be walking around. So I wasn't thinking. But he started trying to talk to me, and as usual, I just froze up and sounded stupid. He smelled like he hadn't showered in over a month, so that's nice. And he hugged me, and it was just, ugh. But yeah, so that was a pretty bad day. But then after that, we went to Taylor Swift class, and that's when we did the in-class essay, so it was a really stressful day. Test, seeing him, essay, but we survived, and afterwards I was like, I deserve some candy. A couple days later was February winter break, and I was so excited because my fall break back in November was amazing. So I was expecting this to be amazing, because yes, I go home every weekend, and that's nice, but like, 10-ish days over 3, like, absolutely. Little did I know. So the break was okay. It started off okay until my entire family got the flu. So yeah, it was not good. My dad got it, then Leah got it, and then I got it at the very end of the week. Now, since I have really bad health anxiety, I was terrified of getting sick. But since I don't usually get sick, I wasn't super worried. Like, I've escaped COVID in our household a few times. I tend to be healthy. So the week was just really boring with me alone in my room trying not to expose myself. I used a different bathroom. I only came up once in a while to get food. I thought I did everything right. But this flu was super contagious. So by Friday night before I went to bed, I started coughing, and I was like, oh no. By Saturday, I had that really bad dry cough that everyone else in the family started with when they got the flu, and I was like, oh no. And they all had like high fevers and stuff, but since I usually get sick differently or don't get sick at all, I was hoping it wouldn't be like that and I'd be able to go to school fine. So Sunday morning comes around and I'm still really coughing, and we're trying to decide what to do. And since I didn't usually go back until the afternoon and the evening anyway, we were like, let's just see how you are by then. Like, if you don't have a fever or anything and it's just the cough, maybe you'll be fine to go. Well, that afternoon my mom took my temperature and I had a pretty high fever. So after that, she was like, yeah, you're not going anywhere. So I had to stay home and miss classes. Guys, the last time I missed class from being sick was like grade 5. I never got sick enough to where I had to miss class. Like, yes, I had little colds and things over the years, but that was fine. But this, it was not. Also, it's not quite the same thing, 'cause like back then I'd go to school for the day, but then I'd come home. But since here I was living in residence, it was very different, and my mom wanted to keep an eye on me. We were also hoping it wouldn't matter anyway, because they were calling for a lot of snow, so we were like, if school's canceled anyway, that'll be good. Of course, it wasn't for me. There were several delays, but none of them were for my classes, so I missed my entire week of classes. Leah had a few snow days while she was sick, 'cause she's lucky. But no, I missed my whole week of classes, and it was not good. Okay. Honestly, I think by Thursday I was going to be fine. Like at that point I had gone 24 hours with no Advil and also no fever. But we were like, what's the point of going back for one day just to come home the same day? That doesn't make any sense. So we were like, let's just give you until next week when you'll be completely good and then it'll be fine. But Sunday was a super chaotic day that we didn't finally go to leave until like 9-10 o'clock. Ridiculous, I know. But when we started driving, it was snowing really, really bad, and it scared me. And I was like, no, I am not letting us drive back in this, and I don't want my mother driving back in this. So I like screamed at her, and I'm like, no, Mom, we gotta turn around. You can't do this, Mom. Like I screamed at her until she finally agreed to turn around. We were like, you know what? Fine. You can miss one more day. You just have the one class tomorrow in the morning, but we'll drive you back tomorrow night. And we were like, okay. My communications professor, he'll just assume that I'm still sick, so it'll work fine. But yeah, throughout that week, I tried to do what I could. I wrote like one post reflection thing for communications, and then I tried to get caught up with some other notes and stuff, but it was so confusing, like missing that entire week and not knowing what's going on just from what's being posted. And you know, it sucks because despite my not being able to read for the last few weeks, I had finally been kind of getting a routine of studying to at least make it somewhat easier, but this break and everything else threw all that out the window, and I never recovered the same. But in the end, it actually kind of worked out that I didn't go back that Sunday night, because the next day was my birthday, and while I don't like my birthday very much and we don't really do anything, it was kind of nice to be, you know, home for my birthday until the evening. Like I, you know, was with my family and stuff, so I was like, that's good, and they liked having me home for my birthday, so that was something. But the night of my birthday, I finally returned after missing 2 weeks. One for the break and one for the flu. But I finally returned, and it felt crazy to be back. Like my roommate was texting me the first few days I didn't come back, and she's like, are you okay? The night I returned, it just felt unreal. Like after you haven't been in a place for 2 weeks, it's crazy. I'm like, I know I'm gonna go back to hating it tomorrow, but like for now, it's fun. Like I felt like I was in a whole new world. Like in my head, I'm like, for the first time in forever. Like it was crazy. Also, apparently they did a room check over the break. They didn't tell me that, but we didn't get in trouble, so thankfully I had nothing bad in there. But I don't know why I would anyway, but thankfully they didn't think anything I had was bad. And when I came back, I also found a Valentine's Day bag. I think I told you guys in my last thing from December how like they give us little bags and stuff for the holidays of like little treats and toys and goodies and stuff. And I said, I bet the next holiday we'll get one for is Valentine's Day. And we did, but it was while I was gone. So it was there for like 2 weeks, and I found it in front of my door. Originally it was on the front door, but my roommate put it in front of my bedroom door, so that was nice. But yeah, even though I returned and was mostly better, things weren't perfect. Basically, while I was over like the fever, contagious, dying phase of the flu in a week, it was still a lingering thing. Both me and Leah and our dad, like we were still coughing for like 3 weeks until we were back to normal. It sucked. Like I still did not feel great. Like I was still coughing. I still felt like I had a cold. I was still tired. I felt like I had mucus stuck in the back of my throat. Like it was miserable, but there was nothing I could do. I couldn't just stay home for a month. but it sucked. And it was just a really miserable time. Like the day after I came back, my roommate's messaging me and she's like, "Are you okay? I heard you coughing like really hard." And it's like, yeah, I'm okay, it just sucks. But like 2 days after I returned, I think 2 or 3 days, I went for one of my, walks to the dollar store, and I was coughing in the store. And it can be especially bad after I came in from like being out in the cold. And these boys heard me coughing and they just start yelling. They're like, "Let's get out of here before we catch something. Stay the fuck home if you're sick." First of all, I guarantee y'all wore your masks under your noses during COVID or refused to wear one altogether. They don't know me. They didn't even see me. They didn't know I was a germaphobe with OCD. No. And also, I understand I sounded sick, but I wasn't sick. I wasn't contagious, but they just had to assume and yell that out, so that was really, really embarrassing. They didn't see me. I was like a few aisles away, but still embarrassing. They don't know how to stay home. Buddy, I've already stayed home for 2 weeks. I can't stay home anymore. Dummy. But also, I was cooked after returning for 2 weeks because all the progress I made for studying, I was over it. We had like a month left of classes and I was just tired and over it. I was so unmotivated. So I was not studying as well as I could have. I was over it. I was tired. I didn't feel well and it wasn't a good time. And I still couldn't read, so. But like weeks before the break, I signed up for this like bracelet making thing. Or actually no, maybe it was during the week I was sick or during the break. We got emails about how my fort was gonna do this little bracelet making event, and I was like, I gotta go to that, because like if you guys know me, I love my bracelets. I'm a bit of a candy kid and I love making bracelets and buying bracelets. Unfortunately, when I was supposed to go to that, I got caught in a health anxiety spiral and I didn't go. And I was devastated to miss it, but I was spiraling and panicking over something and calling my mom, so I didn't go, and it was really sad. However, our amazing RA, she saw that I signed up for it, and she texted me and said like, "Hey, so like we're all done with the event, but I have like all these extra beads, so can I bring them over to your room and like you can make whatever bracelets you want, and then you can give them back after?" And I was like, okay. So I went out to see her because our rooms were like right next to each other. Like her apartment was like right next to mine. So I go out and she brings me these bead kits and I'm like, that is so cool. And she also made me a bracelet. This adorable one with like the flowers, yellow and orange. Yeah, I wear it often and it was great. Also, she saw my birthday post from yesterday, so she's like, "Oh, it was your birthday yesterday, happy birthday." And she was so nice. Although, I kind of never gave those beads back. I kept forgetting, and it was really embarrassing, and then she moved out before I could give them back. So, they're kind of mine now. So, yeah, I brought them home, but now I make my own bracelets all the time, and it's pretty cool. So, yeah, I feel bad, but, like, I never got around to returning them, so nothing I could do. It was also around this time that I started realizing I really hate psychology. This is not what I want to be doing for the next few years, or even at all. Like, our professor was nice, I liked her, but the actual material and how she marked, I hated that. Like, I was not getting, like, this was the class I had the most assignments in by far, and I honestly wasn't doing very good. Like, I don't understand how she marks. Like, she'll be like, "Here's a .85. Like, oh, thanks. Like, I really wasn't doing very good on some of these little assignments. Basically, after every class we did activities, and basically it's an attendance thing where you have to be there in person to know what the activity is, and then it's posted. So you attach that activity, like a picture of it or a copied version of it, and then there's also another question that you can answer. So it's out of 2. 1 point for the activity and 1 point for the question. And you have like 2 days to answer it before you go to 0. And since I was out with the flu, I missed that activity that week. And I even wrote to her, I'm like, "Hey, so like I have the flu, so I wasn't here for the activity, but like here's the other part of the question that I can answer." But she didn't care. She gave me a 50. And I was like, that isn't fair. And then there was another assignment that I only got a 37% on. And that's because I wasn't finished because it wasn't due yet. it wasn't due for like another week, but she decided to mark it now. So I got like a 37 because I wasn't finished. Like, that's kind of ridiculous. It wasn't due yet. You shouldn't be marking it. But yeah, how she marked seriously confused me. While she was nice and funny, I hated how she marked, and it really made me hate psychology. In general, I was like, I'm not interested in this psychology stuff, but I gotta get through it. Meanwhile, I'd want to die every day. It was sad. Meanwhile, communications was actually going a bit better. For the record, for the first psychology test, I got like an 87, I want to say. Yeah, I'll go with that. 87, so pretty good, considering I can't read. But for the communications test, I was more nervous, but apparently I didn't need to be. So after missing an extra day of communications, every other class I missed 2 days, but I missed an extra day of that class since I didn't come back until Monday night, not Monday morning. But I finally went back and he gave me my test back and I got a 94. And I couldn't believe it. And this guy that I talked to in that class and his friends were like, whoa, that's amazing. But I was also worried because I did really good on that test and I did like good on my last like reflection post. Basically, we write it to him. I always wrote too much, but I explained my OCD in like a message and he said okay. So he doesn't get mad at me for writing too much. And I assumed it was good because he told us, like, if you don't get a response from me, that means you did good. If I message you, then that means there's a problem with it. But he never messaged me for my first one or my second one. I assume I'm doing good on the reflections, and I did good on that test, but I was worried about my attendance. Because he said from the first day, that's why we passed the attendance sheet around. We have, like, one excused, and then after that he will start taking 5 points off every day that we missed. So I missed 1, so that was my excuse, but then I missed 2 more, so I was gonna have 10 points taken off. Not good. He handed my test back. Everyone else, I guess, got theirs back like a week ago, but me and a few others who hadn't been there, like, had to just get them now. And some people still never showed up, so that's on them. But he's like, okay, Allison, here's your test. And then I was like, okay, I gotta stay with him after class to ask about the attendance thing because, you know, it's not really fair that I should have those, you know, written down when I had an excuse. So I stayed after class and I was like, hey, so like this grade on my test is really good. I'm doing good on my reflections, but I missed like 3 days because I was sick. Am I gonna get marked down for attendance? And he's like, no, like if it's a medical reason, you won't be penalized. And I'm like, okay, yeah, because I explained it in the reflection I sent you while I was sick. And he said, okay, like I said no. And he said, okay, so I'm thinking, okay, phew, so I'm not gonna have any attendance like deductions and it's all gonna be fine. Well, in the end, it was still fine. He did kind of lie right there, let me tell you. But, you know, he was super nice, and I was super glad to do good on that test. So I was like, something positive. But what wasn't positive is that next week, I had 2 tests in a row. One on Tuesday for psychology, and one on Wednesday for communication. They were basically all covering things that they did while I had the flu, so I knew nothing. And again, I was taking notes and trying to get caught up, but it was just too much to try and figure out. And with me not being able to read and being unmotivated and still not feeling good, I was like, I am ruined for these tests. However, the test didn't actually ruin me too badly. So that next week is the week I vlogged with you guys. So they're unlisted, but if you go to my channel, they're like unlisted, just like the ones from last November where I did another week in my life at university vlog. So you can see that's a week of studying and both of those tests. So I did the first one on Tuesday and it wasn't too bad. The psychology one, I was like, okay. Even though I tend to hate psychology more, I'm more nervous for that communications one. Like, I don't know what we're supposed to know, and it just had me really nervous, and I've been distracted with health anxiety spirals, and I was still spiraling then, so I was like, I gotta log in. However, this plan not only backfired, but led to me meeting a very bad person. A bad man. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh my God, Allison, can't you just meet a normal guy for once in your life? No, apparently not. So it was Tuesday and I survived the psychology test, went to Taylor Swift class, and then I got thinking. I usually do my couple long hour walk-arounds at night, but I had that communications test in the morning. I barely knew anything at that point. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to go on my walk like right now and get that over with. And after that, I am locking myself in my room tonight. Okay, maybe coming out to eat dinner, maybe going to the dining hall for dinner, but I'm going to lock myself in my room and just study. And it did not work. So the difference between walking around at like 3, 4 something is that there are people out there compared to like 10 o'clock at night. So I'm walking around and I'm walking this like little downstairs area to the other 2 residences, which aren't mine, but like I like walking down that hallway a lot. And this guy stopped me and was like, hey, do you know how to get to Loyola? Now, Loyola is like the name of like a residence and like an academic building. It's like the main building of St. Mary's. So like it's the main area. So I told him like, oh yeah, you just keep going down this hallway until you reach the stairs and then go up the stairs and you're there. He said, okay, thanks. But then he started talking to me, saying he liked my hair and my necklace and my outfit, and I was like, oh, thank you. And then we started talking. We started standing there and talking about like school and the war and all this stuff, and he told me that he was just at the school to do something, but he works at the hospital. So I'm thinking like, okay, he's older than me, so like at least 4 years if he's like working at a hospital. But like he seemed really nice, and again I had like no friends, so I was like, okay, nice friend to talk to, not a problem. But we got talking for quite a while until he's like, hey, do you want to go on a walk? And I'm like, okay. But then he asked to go to the park, and before I knew it, I was following him to the park. Now, I'm pretty sure in most cases, if you're a girl and you follow a strange man to a park, you don't come back. But thankfully, he did bring me back, so that was good. Because it was walking, I felt more secure. If he said drive, I would have been like, absolutely not. But no, we walked to the park and it was okay. But then he started saying things that were like, ugh, he likes me. And like I'm trying to like tell him things, but he wasn't reacting the way he needed to, if that makes any sense. Also, this was a massive distraction from my original plan. I was out there for hours, like talking to him, walking with him. Thankfully it wasn't cold because I was literally just in a shirt. But yeah, he was nice, but he walked me back and then asked if I wanted to go for dinner, and I'm like, no, I gotta eat here and use like more flex dollars and stuff. And he said okay. And I'm thinking, well, at least he's a friend, or so I thought. So I didn't give him my phone number, I gave him my Instagram, and he started texting me on there. And then I started going through his posts and noticing how much older he really looked with those dates. And I'm like, Then I went through his Facebook, and I started noticing something weird. In a lot of his photos, they looked like they were taken at university. Like they looked like they were taken at St. Mary's. And that confused me because, like, I assumed he hadn't been there before if he was asking me where the main building was. But it looked like he was in that school multiple times. And at first I was like, did he go for his friends? But then I'm thinking, probably not. Did he go there? Then why would he be asking me for directions? So I started thinking about how old he really was. Like, looking at dates, I'm like, why were you posting on Facebook using big words when I was in like my first grade classroom? That's slightly disturbing. So I didn't know how old he was, but I was thinking, if it's 30s or 40s, I am not surprised. Like, I couldn't tell. Like, he didn't really look old, but like by what he was doing on certain dates in his posts, I'm like, he could be 40. Oh my god. So he was always texting me and asking me to go places, and I didn't want to. I had a bad feeling and I was busy. And also, I think he's trying to poison me, because every time he asked to do something, he would say like, let's get food, let's get ice cream or a burger or pizza or pasta or something. Like, he was always asking about food. And like, he told me he likes to eat, so like I believe that and I understand. But like, everything he was asking for was related to food, and it was really weird. He also commented on like how I was too thin and stuff, which haha, so funny. But it was really weird. And then like around Easter, he's texting me and I'm like, yeah, I'm going home for Easter break. And he's like, oh, you don't want to stay with me, your friend in the city? Do you have to go home? And I'm like, well, probably, but regardless, I want to. Like, I don't know you. Why would I stay with you over Easter? That's so weird. I also just didn't feel secure going with him. Maybe it's because I'm a baby, maybe because I'm asexual, but like, walking to the park with you was already risky as hell. I'm definitely not getting in a vehicle with you. Like, no. And like, I could just tell that he liked me, and I didn't like him like that because he started talking about, like, he was using these cringy pickup lines and talking about kids and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, well, that's not gonna work with my asexual ass. But I didn't even bother explaining it to him. About a week after that park incident, he messaged me and asked if I wanted to go on a date, and I told him no. What I want for relationships, I don't think is gonna work with you. I didn't tell him I was asexual. I didn't feel like I had to or owed it to him. I just told him, like, yeah, it won't work. I'm not gonna bother explaining it to you. And he was like, oh, okay, well, then we can be friends. He did not act like friends. No, like, we were both adults, so it's legal. But I don't know. I'm not comfortable with that kind of age gap. I mean, my parents have an extremely uncomfortable age gap to most people, and even though they're fine, like, I think most people would think it's crazy. But, like, you know, they were both adults. But I'm not into that. I don't want, like, older men. That's not me. And like, I didn't feel comfortable with it. Like, I just turned 20. I didn't know how old he was exactly, but obviously older than me if he's working at a hospital. And like, by the dates on his post, I'm like, he might be even a lot older than that. And I'm not into that. Like, I'm mentally 7. Like, I'm playing with Littlest Pet Shops, for God's sake. Like, you know? One night, or one afternoon I should say, after my usual hang out in the library, draw, and listen to music for a few hours, I was finally heading back to my room. And I saw him. After weeks of avoiding him and not making plans with him, he found me because he was at school again for I don't know what. And he's like, hey, hey. And I was just freaking out like, hey. And I was so nervous. And I told him I had to go because I was going home tonight. That wasn't true, but I just had to make up something. So I rush upstairs, and then he texts me and he's like, hey, I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable earlier. And I said, no, it's okay. Then he starts demanding that we go get food. And at this point, we only have a few weeks left, and I still have flex dollars to use up on my card. So I told him, like, no, I have to eat here. And he's like, school meals are gross. Come on, just one time won't hurt. And I'm like, no, I have to do it. Come on, no. Like, I kept saying no. He would not listen to me. He just kept begging me and begging me. Like, he was desperate for me to get food with him, which is really creepy. He just would not leave me alone. And he was just being so pushy and not accepting no. So I'm like, this right here is exactly why we can never date. But then when I moved out of residence, I was like, finally, free from the city, away from him. He was still texting me these crazy requests. He's like, oh, like, how about you come with me and we'll go on a road trip and get some snacks and we'll drive far, far away from here into the mountains. Like, oh, so that sounds like you want to kill me and bury me and hide me away from everyone. Like, it was creepy. Like, he's asking to, like, take me far away from here. No, I'm sorry. This is a murder trap. Like, he would not leave me alone. But then we eventually got to a point where he didn't talk as much, and I was like, good. And then one day at like the end of May, I was at my best friend Anna's and I finally told her about him and she was like, that is weird. And we both agreed that he could very well be like 30 or 40 because like the dates, his pictures, she also agreed those pictures looked like he was at St. Mary's, so him pretending to be lost doesn't make any sense. Loyola is like the main building. Like, even if you're new and you've never been in there before, you can't miss it. That's where, like, if you're going there for the first time and you have to meet someone, that's where they meet, that's where they plan, that's where the major things happen. It's the tallest building, the most obvious, like the main part of campus. Like, it's weird. So there's no way that if he went there, he wouldn't know where that was. Like, always talking about going hiking or camping together, and it was just weird. And at one point on Instagram Reels, I had liked a video about this girl in a nightmare situation, stuck in an elevator with a bunch of immature boys. And he saw that I liked it, and he sent it back to me, and he's like, this is why you date someone older. You don't know the best advice that I ever heard from an 80-year-old man on the internet. He said the best way to keep a woman is to treat her like a princess during the day and a porn star during the night. What do you think about that? How do you think my asexual self feels about that? Vote now on your phones. But no, that was super creepy. And it was just gross. And those were clearly his intentions, and it was nasty. So Anna and I both agreed that his story did not add up. So we texted him, and I decided to finally ask how old he was. And he just kept avoiding answering. That's a red flag. I'm sorry, but if you're dating someone and they can't even tell you your age, if that's a big secret, we're gonna have more problems. He's like, I'm old enough to pay your bills and your nails done. Why are you suddenly doing a full background check on me? Don't worry, as long as we're both legal, age is just a number. You make it sound like I'm hiding classified government documents. I'm not secretive. I just didn't think age was the most important thing at first. We kept begging until he finally admitted he's 28. Although, I still don't really believe him. He still seems much, much older. Even then, I don't want to date a 28-year-old, but I still feel like he's like 30 or 40, I swear. But anyway, we decided to prank call him and have Anna talk pretending to be me to see if he would notice she sounds different. And at first, he didn't. He was talking to her, thinking she was me, and wasn't questioning anything until I started talking, and then he asked about the voice switch, and I was just pretending it was me, and I gaslit him into feeling crazy, and I'm proud of that. And he's like asking, are you with a friend? I'm like, nope. But then I decided to ask him if he ever went to St. Mary's, and he said yes, many, many years ago. So I asked how it would be possible he would suddenly have no idea where Loyola is. And he admitted that he was just pretending to be lost because he liked my outfit and wanted to talk to me. Who does that to try and get a girl? If you want to compliment me, just do that. Say that. Don't lie and pretend to be lost because that's fucking weird. And then I brought up how it's weird that he keeps trying to ask to go like driving and hiking with me. And he's like, I didn't, even though he literally did. So yay, gaslighting. But after that call, I ignored him for weeks until he unfollowed me. So I thought that finally meant he got the hint. Until sometime in June, he sends me like these sexual reels about 69, saying it's his favorite hobby, and he wants to do it with me, and a bunch of other creepy sexual messages, until I finally blocked him because I couldn't do that anymore. I need to stop meeting weird men because that was just weird and scary, and I don't like that. So yeah, anyway, that first night we met, thankfully it was warm out, but he completely messed up my study plan. I was only able to study for a few hours until I got distracted with more spirals. Like, I was convinced, if you see that vlog, I am terrified for that test. I did not think I was going to survive it, but thankfully I did. The next day I survived the test and I ended up getting a 91. So that was a relief, but still, it wasn't good. So even though the full-time professor strike never happened, a student strike did, where for many different reasons, being mad at our premier and stuff, they want to do a student strike where certain students, to try and get what we want, don't go to class. And a lot of students were doing it, but I couldn't risk missing class and getting in any more trouble. And my parents weren't gonna let me do it anyway, so yeah. I was so nervous I was going to be the only one who showed up, but I wasn't. There were a lot of people absent, but for the most part, other students were there. So it was just for a week to not show up. My Taylor Swift professor, he did cancel classes because he was the one kind of telling us all about these strikes, and that was his class where we talked about it and all that. So he canceled the strike. So he canceled for the strike, but that week I still went to communications and psychology like normal. And during that week, he said that he would have office hours to where if any of us have any questions about our grades, we can go talk to him. And I decided that I would go talk to him because I had a 10 out of 10 on everything except that assignment the week I had the flu. I had a 0. And I, wanted to get that sorted out because, I don't really want a 0 on the record. So one morning I went to meet with him. I was only there for a little bit and he was super nice. And he told me like, did you misunderstand? Because you had like 100% in this class. And I was confused because I had a 0. But that's when he told me that he drops our 2 lowest grades, including if they're 0s. I knew about the dropping lowest grades, but I was like, does it count if they're a 0? And he said yes. So he told me at that point I have 100%. So I was like, ah! So then I told him about like how I had the flu and stuff, and he's like, yuck, that's awful. We were sick over the break too. We were gonna go to Martok, which is close to where we live, and yeah, So he was super nice, and then I wrote him a little letter for his birthday. I don't know, he was like my favorite, kind of like my English professor last semester, so I'm like, I write teachers' notes and I love them. But also that morning something else happened. So like that entire time that I was in residence, my window was slightly open. I think around Christmas I managed to finally close it, but eventually it got open again. And I tried and tried to close it, but I could not. I watched the videos, I pulled and pushed with all my might, but I could not close it. And one day in particular, it was super rainy and windy and cold, and it was freezing. It was like rattling the door, and I was like, I can't deal with that. So one morning I got ready and I embarrassingly went down to the residence desk. I'm like, this is really embarrassing, but like my window, I cannot get it to close. I don't know if it's broken, I don't know if it's me, but like I don't know what to do. So they were like, okay, it could just be jammed, we'll send someone up. So they send a guy up and he goes in my room and he's like, yeah, that's definitely open. And he managed to close it. I could not, but I just wasn't strong enough, and it was hard. I tried, but he's like, yeah, you just gotta close it like that. Oh, thank you. But yeah, thankfully after that, I was no longer freezing or wet, so that was good. It was also around this time we had a little incident in communications. For like 2 days, our professor, he was still there, but he had this assistant teacher, professor, or I should say, from Finland come in and teach us. And she was okay, not as good as him. But yeah, she taught us for like 2 days. The first day, we had to do a thing where we got into groups. And at first I was like, I don't know if this is just me being autistic and stupid and not understanding. Okay, we don't know for sure I'm autistic, but like, you know, and not understanding like a situation, because pretty sure. But this girl was weird and immediately gave me flashbacks to School Mean Girls. So I made a whole story about this on my Instagram when it happened, so you can go check out. But yeah, like March 23rd apparently. But in my communications class, we had to join groups to discuss our guest speaker professor. And no one in my group really said anything. They just kind of talked about random stuff. But this girl who invited me to join the group, because at first I was like, oh, I don't have a group, and I felt very isolated like I would back in high school if I had no friends in my class and couldn't join any groups. But she invited me to join the group, and she's just awkwardly looking at me and staring, and I'm just kind of laughing. But then she says, why are you so quiet? In that tone that immediately triggers PTSD to High School Mean Girls, if you know. Yeah. So she asked me why I'm so quiet. I'm like, oh, I don't know. And then she asks my name and age, and guys, I'm stupid, because I legit had to think how old I was for a second. Like, fuck my life. But, like, my birthday was 3 weeks ago, but I still couldn't accept that I was 20, and I still can't. Like, it just feels wrong to say. But I almost said 19, but then I had to think about it, and I looked stupid before I finally said 20. And Miss Girl is like, no offense, but you look 16. Now, usually I get told I look 7, so better than that, I guess, but still, oh, come on. But, like, don't say that to someone. It's just weird. Like, usually I'm able to interact with people fine. Like I said, I didn't really have a friend group, but, like, when random people came up to talk to me, I was fine. But with her, I was just feeling super anxious and awkward and completely autistic, like I couldn't speak. But then she asks again why I'm so quiet. And then, why are you so small? Again, like, I know. But little did I know she was actually talking weight, not height. Yeah. She was just all stuttering. I'm sorry, I have to ask. And then, like, since I was acting so awkward, I was legit expecting, are you retarded? Because, I don't know, she was just giving me the vibe of asking something like that. But no, she's asking, why are you so small and thin? And, like, I had no words, because my whole life I have been small and underweight without trying, and I hate it. I've been trying to gain weight for the last month. It's not working. My eating issues, anxious, like, just everything's bad. Food sensitivities, sensory issues, it's just all a mess, and I can't explain that to someone. And then 3 years ago, when I was going through that horrible thing, I developed actual eating issues, and that's still why I don't eat much and forget to eat, and it's hard to explain. Like, I don't know. It's so bad for people to understand. Obviously, my weight and eating and mental issues are none of her business to know, but really, I just didn't know what to say to that. She's like, you've got nothing. Like, wow. To many who want to be thin, you might think that's a compliment, but it's really not. It just makes you spiral and makes you more insecure, and she's just pointing at me and saying that. Like, what are you supposed to say to that? And, oh, but wait, there's more. Then she's like, so, like, what do you eat? Who the fuck starts a conversation with a classmate like that? Especially someone you don't know. So I literally just said, oh, not much, which was stupid. And she's like, oh, girl. Like, who talks about this kind of thing with a stranger in a classroom? So I actually cannot tell if she was making fun of me or complimenting me, but it was weird. She then looked at all my bracelets, and this shocked me, but she asked if I'm ace since I have the ace flag color on my bracelets. And I couldn't believe she actually knew what that meant. She's legit the only one who's ever noticed. Does that give me hope one day an ace guy will notice me? Maybe, but like, still, I couldn't believe when talking like that she knew what that meant. So yeah, it was incredibly awkward and confusing, but eventually she started asking me somewhat normal questions, like what I'm studying, what year I'm in, all that. But then she's like, yeah, you seem nice. But again, I can't tell if that was her being nice or making fun of me. And like, it was just, ugh. Eventually she said the class was boring and she wanted to leave, so she did. But like, the whole thing caught me off guard and made me feel weird because I don't know if she was being sarcastic or genuinely meant what she said, but it was just such a weird thing to comment and say to someone, like questioning random people on their weight and what they eat and why they're like that. Like, it's just insane. So yeah, I feel slightly worse about myself now because I was really trying to fit in and look normal, but apparently I don't, so that's great. But the next class, we had to be put in groups again, and I got with these 3 girls, and they were actually normal and nice. We talked about the projects and things relating to it, and it was actually good. Like, they were nice, so that was a relief. Although, there's something else strange. Whenever I would walk around or sit outside the library near the Starbucks, there is this guy. He's the janitor. I swear to God, I know him from somewhere, but I cannot for the life of me think of his name. And he knows me too. Because one day I'm just sitting and he's like, hey stranger, been a while, good to see ya. And I'm like, And like every time he sees me, he's like, hey, yeah, hey, you, how's it going? Like, he knows me from somewhere and I know him too, but I just can't remember. I've asked my friends, I've asked my mom, like, I don't know who he is, but I also do, and it's driving me insane and still is. Like, one day in front of him, I dropped my ID and I picked it up and he's like, I would have made sure you got it back. I can't think of his name, but yeah, apparently he knows me. I don't remember his name. I don't know where I know him from, but I know him and he knows me too. So it's just, that's another thing that's been driving me crazy. Also, kind of near the end of March, they did like a wellness week activity in the bar where we could paint flower pots. And I decided to go. I got put with some random people who complimented my bracelets, but other than that, we didn't talk. But yeah, I painted this kind of flower pot. I didn't really have ideas. I was just kind of looking up on Pinterest. This is what I went with, just kind of random designs, but you know, cute and spring-like. It's not perfect, but I kind of like it. But yeah, also at that painting thing, I talked to this one guy that I also talked to at the friendship dating thing, so that was pretty fun. But yeah, at this point, I'm stressed, but classes are winding down. Taylor Swift class is still the best. We did guest speakers, I had people to talk to. We had a good time, and it was really fun. But other classes were kind of complicated, especially psychology. But soon, we started learning about disorders, which is pretty easy. And when you have a bunch of the disorders they talk about, it's awkward. Some they're like anxiety, yup. OCD, yup. Hypochondria, yup. Like, it's weird and kind of embarrassing. In some ways, it's also like, ooh, I could explain that better. Well, I'm not gonna have to study this because I live with it. So it's weird because it's like, are people judging you? Like, do they know? But no, the disorder stuff was pretty good. And we're talking about like DID and stuff, and I had something to say because, well, trust me, you guys will know one day. It has to do with why I quit 3 years ago and what ruined my life. So yeah, you guys will know one day. But I asked a question like, do they have like an inner world where they date and murder each other? And she's like, they could be, but I'm pretty sure for the most case, alters don't know each other. And I'm like, ha, that's funny. I know some people who are called out by that, but no, that's not what we're here to talk about this time. But yeah, all about that call I was in. But yeah, the disorder stuff was pretty easy, so that was a decent thing to kind of almost end on. It was like the second to last thing we did. But at this point, right before Easter, communications ended. I couldn't believe it. Like, since our second test in like mid-March, he had still been showing us like a bunch of things and linking them, so I assumed we're supposed to be studying this. So I tried to study it, cried because I couldn't read, but in the end it didn't matter because apparently we weren't having a final exam. He told us on the first day we were gonna have a final exam on everything, but as usual he changed his mind and we didn't. So it's like a week before the last day of semester 2. And on the Monday, the communications professor said that next Wednesday would be our last day. So I assumed it would be review for the exam because he said on the first day we would have a final exam. But I wasn't able to find the date online anywhere. For months, I could see where my psychology exam was, but I could not find where this exam was going to be. And like they changed the whole website, so it was super confusing, so I thought it was my fault I couldn't find it, and I planned to ask him where it was if he never announced it. But on like the 1st of April, we finish up class and he's all, bye everyone, it's been a fun class, I wish you all the best. And I'm confused why he's talking like that since he said next week was our last day. So I go up to him to sign the attendance sheet because it missed me when it was getting passed around, and this other girl comes up and asks about the final exam, and he's all, oh, we don't have one. And I think I blocked out for a second when he said that. I was like, we don't? And he said, no. And then the other girl asks, so when's our last class? And he taps the table and he's like, right now. So out of nowhere, I found out that was our last class and I couldn't believe it. And while it wasn't what he told us, I wasn't upset because I was like, I love him even more now. He's scattered and contradicts himself sometimes, but no final exam? I don't have to cry about not being able to read a little bit less? That's great! So yeah, that was our final exam. So it didn't exist. The only things we had marked for that class were a paper, which had been due a few weeks ago, and I was super stressed about because I hate writing papers, especially in APA, but I was like, this sucks, but hopefully he likes it. We could choose like any topic we wanted, and I chose nonverbal communication. But yeah, so I wrote about that. Then we had our 2 tests and 3 reflection posts, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll do okay. And at that point, I was so relieved because now I only had one final exam, psychology, none in Taylor Swift class and now none in communications. So just like last semester when I had only the English exam in person, this was my only exam. But unlike last semester when my final 2 other tests were online, I didn't have any tests at all. So I only had the one psychology exam, and I was like, that is such a relief. I still can't read, I'm still stressed, but now I can stress a little less. If I put all my focus in on that one, I should be okay. So yeah, I was all happy after that communication class until I had to run away before Stalker Boy found me, but that's another story. And 2 days later, I got my final grade from the communications guy, and it wasn't what he said. So let's explain this. I'm terrible at math, but at least I can figure that one out. So the whole is out of 100%. Test 1 was worth 20%, test 2 was worth 20%, our 3 posts were worth 30%, so 10% each, and then our final paper was worth 10%, and then attendance was worth 20%, with each absence 5% off. So on my first test worth 20%, I got 18.8 out of 20, so it was a 94. And then on my second test, oops, did I say 91 earlier? I got a 90 on my second test. I got 18 out of 20. So 18.8 plus 18 is 36.8. Then for each of the posts, reflection posts, I apparently got 100% on all of them because there were 30% and he wrote that I got 30. So apparently I got perfect on all my reflection posts. So adding 30 to that, it's now 66.8. Then for the report that was worth 10%, my long crazy essay, he put 10. So I got 100% on that report. I got 100% on all written things, which I can't believe. And again, with my OCD and stuff, that is amazing. So add 10 to that, we are now at 76.8. Then we get to the attendance, and this is where things get messed up. He said that every absence would be 5% off, and I had 3. But after I returned from having the flu, I told him I was sick, and he said that because of that, it wouldn't count. Now, okay, to be fair, the final one wasn't because I was still sick. It was because I wasn't at school after not wanting my mom to drive in the snow. But I told him I was sick just to make everything sound easier. So I had 3 absences. And they should have all been removed. Technically, if I wasn't sick and I never gave him any excuse, I would have lost 2 because I had 3, but he said he excuses 1 unless you have a medical reason, which I did. So he should have excused all of them. But for some reason, on this part of the email he sent me, he says I had 2 absences recorded and 1 of them is exempt. So I lost 5% for that 1 absence, which is weird because first of all, it was 3. But second of all, I was supposed to have all 3 removed, but apparently he thinks I only had 2, seems to forget that I was sick, so he removed the 1. So yeah, out of 20 in attendance, I got 15. So really, I shouldn't have that because they should have all been removed, and also it's weird because if he's keeping all of them, but then I would have lost 10, so that's not good. But that's weird. So he says my attendance is only 15 when it should be 20 because I shouldn't have lost any points for that. But if we add 15, we now are at 91.8, and my final grade was a 91. But really, it should be a 96 because I shouldn't have that attendance, because I shouldn't have that loss from the attendance. So I know in my heart my grade is supposed to be a 96. But apparently it's only a 91 because he forgot. I know he didn't mean to, but he forgot. If I add 5 to my grade, which is what it should have been, I shouldn't have gotten that attendance deduction. But my final grade should be a 96.8. So if we subtract 96.8 from 100, we get 3.2. So I got 100% on all of my papers and written work, and that attendance does not count as things I got wrong. So the only things I got wrong and points I got missed this entire semester were 3.2 points on tests between the first and the second. So really, that is crazy. I should have 100% for attendance, but I don't. So my grade is a 91 instead of a 96. However, I didn't correct him because my grade still says A+. A 91 and a 96 are both an A+, so I didn't bother to correct him. If it brought me down into a lower letter grade, despite being nervous, I would have said something. But I didn't. The 91 or 96 doesn't matter because they're both A+, and it's letter grades in the system only. So even though he got confused and got it wrong, it doesn't matter. I still got an A+, and that's good. And I know in my heart my grade should have been 96, so that's fine. So after Easter, we only had 1 more week, and I was down to 2 classes, psychology and Taylor Swift class. And Taylor Swift class, we only had 1 more of. Psychology, we had 2. So Taylor Swift class ended, we did our final assignment, and it was all good. And yeah, I love that class. It was so much fun. People I could talk to, something I was passionate about. It was great. And I was expecting an A+ because I had 100%, or so I thought. When I talked to Professor Higgins or Rylan a month before, he told me that my grade at the time was 100% because he removes our 2 lowest grades. We did 10 assignments, all out of 10, and I got 10 out of 10 on 8 of them. The only two I didn't were one where I got a 9 out of 10 and then one where I got that 0 when I had the flu. But since he said he was dropping our 2 lowest grades, that meant that I should have had 100. And 100 is obviously an A+. But when I checked my grades, I saw that in Taylor Swift class I had an A, and I was confused because again, that should have been an A+. So at first I started feeling crazy. I could have sworn he said he was going to get rid of our 2 lowest grades, so therefore I should have 100%. But maybe he is just getting rid of the 1, so he gets rid of the 0, but the 9 out of 10 stays. But at St. Mary's, an A grade is 85 to 89, and an A plus is 90 to 100. So I started doing that math, and I was like, okay, let's say worst case scenario, the 0 is gone, but the 9 out of 10 stays. I was like, no, that still would not put me under a 90. So that doesn't make any sense. My grade should be an A plus. That's what he told me. So I emailed him asking about it, and I never actually checked for a response because at that point I wasn't on my email as much and I was nervous. But he didn't change it until he did. Shortly after I moved out, again, it was still not changed, so I was like, okay, I guess he's just doing something where he doesn't give A pluses. But then one day I looked, like a week after I moved out, and it was changed to an A plus. So that was good. That grade was just very confusing at the time, but yeah, he changed it, and I now have the A plus, so yay. That's awesome. The hardest class I took, it was supposed to be because it was a level 2, but I got an A plus, so yeah, it wasn't hard at all, and it was really fun. So I'm so glad I had that class as some positive and some social interaction. Like, that was my socializing for the week, every week, twice a week, and that was good. So at that point, all I had left was psychology and a final exam on everything. And I was nervous because while my test grades had been good, like 87 and 85, my assignments weren't super great. I had some 0s by accident because I genuinely just forgot to submit the activity in time. I had some other grades that were just not so great because, again, I really didn't like how she marked. Like, she was nice, but I could not stand how she marked. And then I had some others that were just unfair and didn't make any sense. So I was very worried for this exam, worried especially because I couldn't read, but I was like, okay, it's one exam. I'm pretty sure in this class I'm going to get like a B plus or an A minus or an A at the absolute best. Little did I know how surprised I would be. So we eventually had our final psychology class, and I damn it missed it. She was giving out chocolate at the beginning, but since I showed up late, I didn't get any, so that sucked. But we had our final class, and then the next week I was just there preparing for the final exam with no classes, and I was just doing my best to study despite everything. But one of the days I decided, you know what, I'm gonna take like one last run to, the dollar store mall and, see what we can find. So I start walking, and I'm on the sidewalk, and this guy is just standing there staring down the ditch, and I'm like, what are you looking at? Eventually he keeps walking, and I approach the same spot, and I hear a ringing sound, and I look in the ditch, like in front of a tree, like behind a bunch of sticks and stuff. I see a phone pinging, and I was like, oh. So it seems someone was trying to call, but by the time I reached the phone, it went off. So I looked at the phone, and I was like trying to see if anyone would call again. I tried to get into it, but it was locked, and I was like, ooh, what do I do with this? So I was like, I'm gonna have to try and return this phone. So I took it with me. I put it in my pocket and went to the store. And while I was there, I made a post on like this Facebook group asking if anyone's lost a phone and all that, but no one replied. So eventually, after, a couple hours, I got back to my dorm, and I'm like texting Anna about it, and I'm looking at the phone, and eventually I took the case off, and I realized there were numbers and a name in the back, and I was like, okay, that's good. So across from the university is a playground, and then up the road from that, it's the middle school and the hospital and the Ronald McDonald House and all that. So I'm texting Anna, and she's like, I think you should take the phone to the middle school. Like, it probably belongs to one of the students. So I said, yeah. That's a good idea. So I walked up the road to the middle school, and school had just gotten out. So I tried to open the door, and it was locked. And I was like, great. So I tried to open it, but then I couldn't, so I just walked away. So I looked like I was some creepy stranger trying to break into the school. So that's great. So I tried to call the office, but I got no answer. So then I kind of like paced outside and around the school a few times again, looking like a total creep. I'm lucky the cops didn't get called. But after a while, I was like, shoot. So I was just kind of sitting out back watching these boys play basketball. I considered asking one of them, but I was like, no. So I went and I looked at the phone numbers in the back, and I decided to try them. So the first one didn't go through. The second one, I went to voicemail. So I sent a very awkward voice messages being like, hey, have you lost a phone? Like, I have it. And eventually this dude calls me back, and it was very awkward to understand. I'm like, hi, my name's Allison. I found a phone. And he's like, yeah, that's my son's. And like, it was hard to hear because it was loud, all the cars and all the noise. And he's like, where are you? And I tried to explain, but then the call dropped, and then it took me forever to get back online. It was so awkward trying to explain where I was, but eventually he texted me and said, send me your location and we'll come and pick up the phone. So I sent him my location, and then I just waited at the park. I did quickly run up and try to clean his phone. Like, I wiped it down because, you know, I'm so nice. But after a while, they came to pick it up, the guy and his son. And yeah, his son was like in middle school, and he's like, oh, like, I'm never taking it to school again. And he thanked me, and it was very sweet. And even though the dad spoke English on the phone, the son had to like translate what I was saying in front of him. It was interesting. But yeah, after a day of chaos, I returned someone's phone. So that is pretty cool. And I figured it out on my own. So yeah. So after messing around, I did my absolute best to try and study for the final exam. I tried to read, but again, that just wasn't working, so I did my like online Gizmo cards. That was the best I could do. And I wasn't doing too bad, and I was like, this isn't great, but hopefully I survive. The day of, the exam's not till like 6 p.m., so I have the whole day to study until something happened. Something annoying. So I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it a few times, but I have what you would call the most irregular periods ever. I mean, irregular with the timing and the symptoms. Like, I never know when to expect it, how painful it's gonna be, what other symptoms I'm gonna get with it. Like, it's all a guessing game, and a not fun one at that. So at this point, my last period was at the end of February. Fun fact, the same week I had the flu. And while you would think that would be like a hell situation and make it so much worse, it honestly didn't, because I was on so much Advil for my fever at the time. It also made it so I didn't have like any pain or cramps at all, so that was good. But after that, all March, skipped. Did not get any period in March, and unfortunately skipping for me is very normal. But yeah, at this point, I haven't had a period since end of February, but randomly, mid-April, it finally decides to show up the day of my exam. And I'm like, no. And I was on my last Advil. At home we had Advil, but I also had some at school that was like my personal stuff in like my little bin where I kept like, you know, my first aid kit and like other things, extra toothbrush, all that. I had like my own Advil, and at this point I only had one left, and I wasn't sure what to do. But I plan to save it for later tonight before my exam, because you know, you never know exactly what time it'll start hurting. So I was like, I'm going to save that for tonight so there's not any chance I'll be in pain or distracted during my exam. But it didn't go that way. So I'm trying to study and other things, but out of nowhere, the pain hits, and I'm like, okay, maybe I can ignore it. But it was one of those times where I couldn't ignore it. Sometimes, like another part of it being irregular, sometimes it's so bad I'm literally shivering, shaking, and crying. Other times I can get through the entire week without taking one Advil. Apparently, this was one of those times where it's so bad you're rolling around and crying. So yeah, I was like, oh no, I am not going to be able to wait until tonight to take that Advil. I need to take it now. But then I was like, what am I gonna do? Because if I take it now, it's going to wear off like right before the exam. So I'm screwed. So I had to make a plan to survive this day. I had to take an emergency trip to town to buy Advil. And I had to try and find the nearest Shoppers or Lawtons. And in my mind, it was Shoppers, like on the same road as that mall that I usually go to. That's where I was like, okay, I need to go there as soon as possible. But right now, I need to wait for this to kick in. And it was not kicking in. I've been taking like this junior Advil my whole life. I said this recently in my back with a vengeance story time. Despite my age, I've been taking like junior Advil my whole life. And for my whole life, like since I was 6, no matter what I was taking it for, I've taken it for a million different issues. It always only took like 20 to 30 minutes to kick in. But from the very first time I took it in 2025 until now, it now takes over an hour until I feel any better. So clearly I've built up some kind of tolerance to it. When I had the flu, I was taking like 3 at a time, and that made it work much faster. But usually for other issues, I don't like wasting it, so I only take 1. So it takes over an hour, and I had only 1 left. Usually when I'm waiting for it to kick in, I just want to feel better. It's not because I'm in a rush. But this time I actually was in a rush because I had to go shopping. But this is one of those times it was taking even longer than normal to kick in. So I was just like dying and rolling around, and I'm like, I am screwed. Like it was always bad at university because like no heating pad, no bathtub. But like this was even worse because I needed to study. My exam was today and I was not okay. So after forever, it finally kicked in, and I was like, okay, this is really testing me being an adult. I have to go and take money and try and buy some Advil and get back here before the exam. So that's what I had to do. Even though it was raining and pretty miserable outside, I had to go. So I got my gear, my butter knife that I take with me because there are crepes, and yeah, I just had to go. So I walked to town, which again, my parents would not be happy with me doing. But I walked to town and I actually found a Lawtons. Apparently there was a Lawtons and Shoppers on the same road, and Lawtons was first. So I was like, perfect. So I went in there and walked around and nearly got distracted with other things. I was like, ooh, pretty stuff. And then I was like, what am I doing? But I finally found the Advil, and I was like, perfect, this is exactly my kind. And actually the stuff I'd been taking was grape, which is not my favorite kind, but I actually found the kind I prefer. So I was like, thank God. So I got that Advil, and then I was like, I'm suffering right now, I want to get something nice. So I saw this cute little pig and I'm like, I can't resist. So I bought that, and then I saw Playmobil Kinder Eggs and I was like, I can't resist that either. It comes with an actual Playmobil and it's chocolate, which I need right now. So no, but yeah, so I got those 3 things and checked out. And again, own money. And when I walked out, like the alarm was beeping and I'm like freaking out and looking at the security officer, and she's like, you're fine, you can go. So yeah, I went out and put everything in my bag, and I was like, okay, now I need to get back and get ready for the exam and just try and study what I can. So I got back and I had about an hour and a half. So I got everything sorted. It took me forever to open the Advil. I suck at childproof caps at my big age. I had to watch like tutorials and I was so worried I wouldn't get it, but I finally got it open. So I packed my little exam bag, which is just a few things that I wanted to take, which was like my mascot, my cat LPS, a few other things that I'm like, if there's a fire, I want these to be safe with me. So yeah, I just kind of got my stuff ready, and then it hit me. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't read, I can't study, I am going to do horrible on this exam. I was panicking, I was freaking out, crying to ChatGPT, like I was panicking until I checked my email and had an email from my psychology professor telling us that she dropped our 7 lowest grades. And I was like, that brought my grade way up. Like everything that I got like a 50 on during the week that I had the flu was gone. Zeros I had, gone. A few others that just weren't very good, gone. My grade was way higher going in, and that calmed me down. So I was like, okay, even if I don't do great on this exam, my final grade is still going to be okay. So that calmed me down. I was like, I take back every bad thing I ever said about how she marks. I love how she marks. Because yeah, like, again, Rylan dropped like our 2 lowest grades, and I don't think any of my professors dropped any grades, like any of the other ones. But yeah, she dropped like 7 things, and I was so relieved. After that, I felt a little calmer. She also said in her email there'd be another psychology class there, and my brain immediately went, oh, stalker boy. Is he gonna be there? Because he's in that other psychology class I was in on the first day. But then I realized, no, it wasn't him. It was her online psychology class, so it was okay. But that made me feel a bit better, because I was like, okay, I'm going into this exam much better off than I did before. So I got the courage to head down. We waited outside the doors for a bit until we went inside. And actually, this room was the same room of my very, very first class, that sociology class that I dropped. So I was like, wow, we're back here again for my final thing. Like, we've come full circle. But no, I just got seated and we did the exam. And really, it wasn't as bad as I was expecting. Some of it, I was like, help me. But for most of it, it was okay. And at the end, she had us to write like things we liked about the class and stuff. And I wrote a note on the back, apologizing and explaining my not being able to read for months. I was like, if this is bad, I promise I have a reason. I know I should have said it earlier, and I'm sorry I didn't, blah, blah, blah. Ow, just stung my finger. But yeah, I like explained that and wrote it to her, and yeah. So after a while, I was like one of the last ones, just checking it over, repacking. I handed it in, and I was free. I was free of schoolwork. And I just sat on the bench like, it's really all done. So after that, I went up to my room and I was finally free of schoolwork. And that was such a relief. So yeah, normally I'd be going home the next day, but I was actually going to stay until Saturday for once. So that was interesting. But yeah, after that, I was free and I just got to walk around free, and I couldn't believe it. But yeah, my period did not ruin everything. I was just especially nervous because, well, I have another story about how an exam day was ruined by my period. If you guys want that story, let me know. But yeah, I'll probably tell it one day anyway. But yeah, it had me panicked, but it wasn't that day again, and I survived. So yeah, that was a relief. I managed a trip to town, got what I needed, and went to the exam and finished it like an adult, so yay. Now just comes the hard part, waiting for results. But anyway, after this point, I was free. I could just hang out in my room all I wanted, walk around all I wanted, do whatever I wanted, and that was really nice. So I just spent the next day chilling and listening to music and reading my own book, which I could actually read somewhat, thankfully, and, going on walks and drawing, and it was just really nice. And then, for the first time, I was going to sleep there on a Friday night, and I woke up Saturday morning, and I was like, wow, it is bright, and the birds are singing. Like, I was never there on a weekend morning, so this was crazy to me. But yeah, I just got up and packed, and I wasn't there too long. It was just so bright and warm and freeing and curing for seasonal depression, let me tell you. But yeah, I got picked up like around 1. My dad came to get me. We went to the store, and yeah. Then we went home, and I was free. I only had a few more days where I would go next week. Technically, I didn't need to. Technically, they want you to leave like as soon as you finish your final exam so you're not distracting anyone, but I'm not distracting. I was going to stay in there until the final night you could stay in residence. And the next day my mom was going to help me, and I did a vlog of like my day before and the day I moved out. But yeah, the next week I was just chilling and hanging out and walking around, occasionally talking to people like that one guy from English. But other than that, I was just kind of chilling. And like they had a coloring thing in the library, so I was there for a good couple of hours, like coloring these coloring books and making everything look pretty, because that's what I do. It was actually this time I sent the email to the Taylor Swift professor. I only brought it up earlier because we were talking about final grades, but yeah, it was at this point I found out I had an A instead of an A+, so I emailed him. And then like 2 weeks later is when the grade was changed. Also around this time I found like the app Hello Chef, I think it is, where you can check your meal plan, so I didn't have to keep emailing them asking my balance. But yeah, at this point I had bought pretty much everything I could with that money, so I managed to spend it. But the week went by and everything just ended. So it was the last night there before I had to move out. And well, you guys saw from the vlog, so I had to try and get together what I could, pack what I could, which was way harder than everything on the way there, because I had way more stuff than I did back then, because you know, things I've brought in between the weeks throughout the year. So yeah, I just had to get everything packed the best I could, and it was chaos until my mom showed up. And we got everything packed. We went out on like a couple of trips to get it. And she brought my roommate a bunch of stuff to say thank you, because she was sweet. They matched us really well. Like, she was quiet, she was sweet, and we got along just fine. So yeah, we gave stuff, we took a picture with her, and she actually gave me another gift, which was so sweet. I showed it in detail in the vlog, but yeah, it was this lovely gift of stuff. But yeah, I didn't have to do as much moving out cleaning as everyone else, because she is actually still staying there. Like, she's staying there, and now she can take over the whole apartment that I've been gone. But yeah, so I didn't have to do like all the cleaning in the bathroom or the kitchen or anywhere else, just in my room, and they do the rest. So yeah, we just kind of picked up what we could, and then they could clean just a little bit. But yeah, seeing my room empty was crazy, because it's like, wow, it was just like this, because it feels like I just moved in, but it was done. So yeah, I took one last look outside my amazing 19th floor view, and we left. And that's when I moved back home, as you saw in the vlog. And I didn't know how to feel, and I still don't. Because as much as university sucked, that room became part of me. It became a home for me, and everything else sucked, but I had a good room and a good roommate and comfort walking around. So it was very weird being out of there. And I believe it triggered OCD spirals, because for the next 2 months I was anxious and miserable and couldn't sleep, as I explained in my Things Are Rough video, and it's still kind of like that. But that's why I didn't do as much as I wanted to. I had so many other videos I wanted to do, but I didn't. And then I couldn't do them because my laptop broke, and it's still broken, and I still don't have a new one. So yeah, those 3 major films I wanted to do, I can't. I've barely even scripted them. I feel so dumb. I've like written out plot points for 2 out of 3, but yeah, have not gotten as far as I wanted to, which really sucks. But anyway, once I got home, I got my psychology grade, or my exam grade, and I got like an 86, which is really solid considering I couldn't read. So that was great. And in the end, I couldn't believe it. I got an A+ in psychology. I couldn't believe it. I still think it's a mistake, because again, I was doing so bad. And even with the like 7 lowest grades removed, I didn't think it was A+. Again, I was like an A at best, because I was getting like 80s on every test and exam, and then whatever else on assignments. But no, somehow I got an A+. I don't know how it's true, but I got an A+ in all 3 courses second semester, when I couldn't read and I couldn't study. Like, it's insane, and I'm still so happy about that. Do I feel smart? But I don't know, because again, I couldn't read and I felt crazy, but that was still amazing. And then shortly after is when my Taylor Swift grade was changed from A to A+. So I did get an A+ in all three, which was amazing. And from there, that was the second semester. So as much as I hated university because it was lonely and stressful, I missed it. I missed having my room, I missed walking around, I missed all of that. So, like a month later, when I had to stay at the Ronald McDonald House, I walked into my old university a couple of times to walk around, because just walking around somewhere familiar, like the environment, I still really loved. So I was happy to walk around there again. I am back, woo! And it was just so nice to walk around there again because it was familiar and comforting, and yeah. Also, it's way different during the summer, way less people. Second semester improved because I didn't get stalked and sexually assaulted. Well, I had another creep, that guy, but yeah, stalker boy backed off. I no longer had to take 19 flights of stairs. Also, another story, like it was a little bit after Easter, like a few days after Easter. One night when I was doing my walking around, there was a fire alarm that went off in our residence building, but I didn't hear it because I was across the school. So I was coming back after my walk and I saw people lined out the door, and I was like, what is going on? And apparently there was a fire alarm. And I'm like, that is insane. So yeah, like at 11 o'clock at night when people are trying to go to bed, a lot of people were in pajamas, they had to go outside for a fire alarm. So yeah, we're not sure what happened, but there was a fire alarm and it was crazy. And I had my 2 LPS on me, because like this one and then that cat that I love, because I take them everywhere because I'm like, what if there's a fire? The other ones are fine because they're duplicates, but I cannot lose these. So yeah. And then I was later talking to my roommate about it, and it was so funny that we both agreed I'm the one who has experience going down those stairs, but then when I actually need them, I'm always absent when there's fire alarms. It's so weird. And then it was nice walking around after we were pretty certain that stalker boy moved out, and Anna sent me a voice message. She's like, good, I am glad that stinky, nasty, crusty, dusty, musty bitch is finally gone. And we were like, yes, me too. But yeah, second semester definitely improved. I missed English, but it was actually better in some ways, even though it was also harder in some ways. It was complicated, but it couldn't have gotten too much worse. Was it fun? No, but some of it was good, so that was fun. As of now, it's literally the middle of August, and I still have no idea if I'm going back or not. That's pretty bad. I know I've decided that I don't want the full BA, the full bachelor's anymore. I don't want to graduate there. But I could benefit from getting a few more credits. What I would love to do is go back for 1 semester and stay in residence while doing this other online program, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to, so I'll let you guys know. That would be nice, but yeah, I don't want to do another full year, and I don't want to fully graduate there because it'll take me years and there's no guarantee of a job. Meanwhile, this EA job I am looking for, and I can get it without graduating, but a few more credits would look good in my image, so that's why. But yeah, if I do go back, even if it's only for 1 semester, I'm hoping it'll be better. I'm hoping I can get in a class with my English professor. Anna's going back, so I'll get to see her, and then hopefully I can meet some other people. I don't know. A lot of people say the second year gets better, so if I go back, even if it's only for 1 semester, I hope that turns out true. I know it's bad, I should give it like more time, but really, I'm not going by experience, I'm going by what I want. Anyway, I survived a year in university. It was rough, but I made it. And in some ways I miss it, in some ways I don't. So I still have to figure out what I'm doing, but hopefully I'll be able to figure that out soon. So yeah, that was my second semester of university. It was a ride, but we survived it. Anyway, so if you've listened to all this yapping, thank you. You are amazing and I love you. So thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment if you can, and we'll see you later. Bye.